At 5:30 in the morning, the world is usually silent. But that morning, the silence was shattered by a phone call that would ruin my life. Or perhaps finally start it. My neighbor's voice was trembling through the speaker. "Arthur, you need to look at your front gate, now." I threw on a coat and ran outside. The freezing December wind bit at my face, but what I saw chilled me to the bone. There, huddled on a single piece of cardboard, sat a 75-year-old woman. She was surrounded by 3 trash bags and 2 broken suitcases. It was Evelyn, my grandmother. My own parents had dumped her at my gate like a bag of unwanted clothes. No note, no warning. Just a grandmother discarded in the dark. My name is Arthur. I'm 28 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew what cruelty meant. I was wrong. To understand why a son would throw his mother onto the street like garbage, you have to understand the sick dynamic of my family. For as long as I can remember, my brother Leo was the golden boy. He was the one who got the expensive cars, the Ivy League tuition, and the endless second chances. And who paid for it all? Evelyn, my grandmother. 10 years ago, when my grandfather passed away, he left Evelyn a modest house and a small life insurance policy. My parents, Beatrice and Silas, convinced her to sell everything. They told her, "Mom, move in with us. We'll take care of you forever. Just help Leo with his medical school fees." Evelyn, with a heart far too kind for her own good, gave them every single cent. She became the unpaid nanny, the maid, and the silent shadow in the corner of their mansion. But Leo didn't become a doctor. He became a high-stakes gambler with a taste for luxury he couldn't afford. Fast forward to last week. Leo decided he needed a creative studio for his failing podcast venture. My parents didn't even hesitate. They didn't have any spare rooms left, so they looked at the smallest, most insignificant thing in their house, Evelyn's bedroom. They didn't tell her. They waited until I was away on a business trip. They packed her life into 5 bags, drove her to my house in the middle of the night, and left her there. When I found her at the gate, she wasn't crying. She was just staring. Her hands were blue from the cold. "Arthur," she whispered, her voice cracking like dry autumn leaves. And I think I forgot how to get inside. I carried her into my house. I wrapped her in every blanket I owned. My blood was boiling. I called my mother, Beatrice. It took 5 tries before she picked up. "Arthur, honey, it's too early," she groaned, sounding bored. "You left Grandma at my gate, Beatrice, in the freezing cold. What is wrong with you?" There was a long pause. Then she sighed. "We're just reorganizing, Arthur. Leo needs the space. You're single. You have a guest room. It's your turn to deal with her. Don't be so dramatic." Before we get to the part where they realize they made the biggest mistake of their lives, make sure to hit that subscribe button. This story is just getting started, and the revenge that's coming, you won't want to miss a second of it. Leave a comment below. What would you do if your parents did this to your grandmother? For the first 3 days, Evelyn barely spoke. She just sat by the window, clutching an old leather-bound diary. My parents blocked my number. Leo posted a picture on Instagram of his new studio in Evelyn's old room with the caption, "Upgrading the vibe." But on the 4th night, something changed. I walked into the kitchen to get a glass of water, and I found Evelyn sitting at the table. She wasn't the broken old woman from the gate anymore. She was sitting perfectly upright, her eyes sharp and piercing. "Arthur," she said, her voice suddenly firm, "do they think I am poor?" I hesitated. "Grandma, we know you gave them the house money." She let out a short, cold laugh. It wasn't the laugh of a victim. It was the laugh of a predator. "I gave them what they wanted so they would leave me alone," she whispered. "But Silas and Beatrice, they are greedy. And greed makes people blind. They think they know everything about my late husband. They think he was just a simple clockmaker." She opened the leather diary. Inside weren't just memories. There were account numbers, routing codes, and a series of property deeds in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands. "My husband didn't just make clocks, Arthur. He patented the movement systems used by 3 of the largest luxury watch brands in the world, and the royalties, they haven't stopped coming for 40 years. My jaw dropped. "How much, Grandma?" She leaned in, the moonlight catching the hidden fire in her eyes. "As of yesterday, $51,200,000. I stared at the numbers. It was more money than my parents would see in 10 lifetimes. "What are we going to do?" I asked, my heart racing. Evelyn closed the book with a definitive thud. "We are going to let them think they won," she said. "We are going to let Leo spend every cent of the allowance they give him. And then, Arthur, we are going to take away the one thing they love more than their own souls, their home." She looked at me and smiled, a slow, terrifying smile. "But first, I need you to call a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I need the one who handled my husband's private affairs. Because tomorrow, we are filing a police report for elder abandonment. And that, my dear grandson, is only the opening act. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. We're coming over tomorrow to drop off the rest of her junk. Don't make a scene. I looked at Evelyn. She nodded. The trap was set. The sun hadn't even cleared the horizon when the sound of a heavy diesel engine rumbled outside. My parents' luxury SUV. They didn't knock. They just started thumping heavy boxes against my front door. I opened it, and there was Beatrice, my mother, wearing a $2,000 designer coat, looking at my house with pure disgust. Behind her, Silas was hauling a dusty crate, and Leo, the golden boy, was leaning against the car, scrolling through his phone, completely indifferent to the fact that his grandmother was missing. Move, Arthur, Beatrice snapped, pushing past me. We've got the rest of her junk. The basement was getting cluttered, and Leo needs the space for his soundproofing equipment. I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, blocking the path. She's not here to receive her junk, Beatrice. She's at the police station. The silence that followed was heavy. Silas dropped the crate. Leo finally looked up from his phone. Police? Silas stammered. What for? It's a family matter, Arthur. Don't be a brat. It's not a family matter when you dump a 75-year-old woman in sub-zero temperatures with no key and no phone, I said, my voice as cold as the frost on the grass. It's called elder abandonment. It's a felony, and the police are very interested in the security footage from my neighbor's Ring camera. Beatrice laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare ruin our reputation over a little, misunderstanding. That was when a black town car pulled up behind their SUV. Out stepped Marcus Thorne. He was the kind of lawyer you only see in movies. Impeccable suit, eyes like a shark, art and a briefcase that probably cost more than my parents' car. Evelyn had called him at 4 a.m. Apparently, Thorne had been waiting for this call for 20 years. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, Thorne said, his voice smooth and terrifying. I am the executor of the late Elias Sterling's private estate. I believe you are currently trespassing on property that, well, let's just say your residency status is about to become very complicated. My mother's face went from pale to ghostly white. Who are you? Elias didn't have a private estate. He left everything to us. Thorne smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. He left you the house you currently live in, yes, but he left the land it sits on to a private trust, a trust controlled entirely by Evelyn Sterling. And as of 8 a.m. this morning, the trust has issued an immediate eviction notice due to unsanctioned structural changes. Specifically, the destruction of a protected bedroom to build a podcast studio. Leo's phone fell out of his hand. Wait, what? You can't kick us out? I just ordered $10,000 worth of acoustic foam. $10,000? I looked at Leo. With what money, Leo? The allowance Mom and Dad give you? The money they took from Grandma's Social Security checks? Silas stepped forward, his fists clenched. Arthur, tell this man to leave! Now! This is our house! Suddenly, the front door opened wider. Evelyn walked out. She wasn't wearing her old cardigan anymore. She was wearing a silk wrap, her white hair pinned back perfectly. She looked like a queen surveying her subjects. It was your house, Silas, she said softly. But you forgot the most important rule of the Sterling family. We take care of our own. You stopped being my own the second you left me at that gate. She turned to Thorne. Marcus, have the accounts been frozen? Yes, Mrs. Sterling. All joint accounts linked to the primary trust have been locked for investigation of elder financial abuse. Your son and daughter-in-law currently have access to, let me check, approximately $42.16 in their shared checking account. The look on Beatrice's face was worth every cent of that $51 million. She reached for her phone, probably to call her bank, but Thorne stopped her. I wouldn't bother, Beatrice, Thorne said. The bank has already flagged your last 3 mortgage payments. Since they were paid using funds embezzled from Evelyn's private royalties, funds you weren't supposed to touch, the bank is initiating a fraud clawback. You senile old hag, Beatrice screamed, lunging toward Evelyn. I stepped in front of her, catching her arm. I've never been a violent man, but the grip I had on her was iron. Touch her, and I won't wait for the police. I'll end this right here. Beatrice recoiled, shaking with rage. You'll regret this, Arthur. We raised you. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing but a front row seat to your cruelty, I replied. Now, You have 1 hour to go back to that house and pack your things. The locks are being changed at noon. Anything left inside becomes the property of the trust, including your precious acoustic foam, Leo." They scrambled back into their SUV, screaming at each other, the golden boy sobbing about his career, and my mother frantically trying to call anyone who would listen. As they sped away, Evelyn leaned against the porch railing. She looked tired, but satisfied. "Is it over, Grandma?" I asked. She looked at me, and that predator-like spark was back in her eyes. "Over? Arthur, we haven't even talked about the IRS yet. Do you really think they've been paying taxes on the money they stole from me for the last decade?" She handed me a small golden key from her pocket. "Go to the basement of their house. Behind the false wall in the wine cellar, there's a safe. They think it's empty. They've never been able to open it." "What's inside?" I asked, my heart pounding. Evelyn leaned in and whispered, "The reason your father was so desperate to get rid of me. It's not just about the money, Arthur. It's about the crime he committed 25 years ago to get that house in the first place." My blood ran cold. The revenge wasn't just about money. It was about a dark secret that could send my father to prison for the rest of his life, and I was the only one with the key. The locks had been changed, but I didn't need a locksmith. I had the legal right to enter the property as the representative of the Sterling Trust. At 11 o'clock that night, I entered my parents' mansion. It was silent, smelling of expensive candles and betrayal. I headed straight for the wine cellar. My father, Silas, always boasted about his collection of vintage Bordeaux, but he never let anyone near the back wall. Now I knew why. I found the false panel behind a rack of 1996 Petrus. The golden key Evelyn gave me fit perfectly into a tiny hidden keyhole. The wall didn't just open, it hissed, revealing a modern, high-security safe. Inside the safe, there were no gold bars. There was a thick, yellowed envelope dated 25 years ago. As I read the documents inside, my hands began to shake. It wasn't just about money. 25 years ago, my grandfather Elias didn't die of natural causes. He was in the process of disinheriting Silas for his gambling debts. The documents showed a forged medical report and a series of hush money payments to a corrupt doctor who has since disappeared. Silas hadn't just taken the house. He had accelerated his own father's death by withholding life-saving medication, then forged the will to cut Evelyn out. He thought the only person who knew was the doctor. He didn't realize Evelyn had been keeping a duplicate log of everything. She was waiting for the right moment. And that moment was now. I walked out of the cellar just as the front door burst open. Silas and Beatrice were there, looking disheveled, their expensive clothes wrinkled. They had broken back in, desperate to get to the safe. "Get out of our way, Arthur," Silas screamed, his eyes bloodshot. "That safe belongs to me." "Does it, Silas?" I held up the yellowed envelope. "Or does this belong to the district attorney?" Silas froze. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. You didn't open it. You couldn't have." "Evelyn gave me the key," I said, stepping closer. "She saw what you did to Grandpa 25 years ago. She stayed silent all these years because she wanted to believe her son still had a soul. She gave you every chance to be a human being. And how did you repay her? You dumped her at a gate like trash." Beatrice tried to snatch the envelope, but I pushed her back. "It's over. The police are outside. And this time, it's not just for elder abuse. It's for manslaughter and forgery." At that moment, Leo stumbled in. Are crying. "Mom, Dad, the bank just seized my car. They said the lease was flagged for fraud. What's happening?" I looked at my brother, the golden boy, who never worked a day in his life. "What's happening, Leo, is that the free ride is over. You're not a doctor. You're a 30-year-old toddler about to be homeless." Blue and red lights began to flash against the mansion's marble walls. The police entered, led by Marcus Thorne and a very calm, very regal Evelyn. Watching Silas being handcuffed in his own foyer was the most satisfying thing I'd ever seen. Beatrice was screaming about her reputation, her social club, her life, but no one was listening. As they led Silas to the squad car, he turned to Evelyn. "Why? Why now? Why wait 25 years? Evelyn walked up to him, her face cold as stone. "Because, Silas, I wanted to see if you would ever love me more than you loved his money. I waited, I hoped. But when you left me in the cold, I realized I didn't have a son anymore. I only had a murderer in my house." 6 months later, the mansion was sold. The proceeds went to a foundation for elder protection. Leo is currently working at a fast food chain to pay off his debts, living in a studio apartment the size of a closet. Beatrice is living with her sister, who hates her, stripped of every luxury she once used to look down on others. And Silas? Silas is serving a 15-year sentence. I moved Evelyn into a beautiful penthouse overlooking the city. We don't talk about the $51 million much. We don't need to. We spend our days at the park or in the library. Sometimes, I look at her and I see the woman who was discarded at my gate, and then I remember the lesson she taught me. Revenge isn't about anger, it's about balance. And in the end, the scale always finds its way back to the truth. Last week, I received a letter from prison. It was from my father. It said, "Arthur, you think you found everything in that safe, but you missed the second key. Ask Evelyn about the basement in the old clock shop. Ask her about what really happened to the other Sterling brother." I looked at Evelyn across the table. She was smiling, but her eyes were suddenly very, very dark. "Grandma?" I asked. "Did Grandpa have a brother?" She didn't answer. She just took a sip of her tea and whispered, "Some secrets, Arthur, are better left in the dark."